The year is 1258. Grandson of Genghis Khan marches as the head of one of the most formidable armies the world had ever seen. Their banners rise against the horizon, casting shadows that stretch for miles. For months, they have carved a path of destruction across Asia, cities reduced to ash, rivers turned red with blood. Now their destination is Baghdad, the jewel of the Islamic world. The city that has stood for centuries as the beacon of knowledge and power is about to face its darkest hour. My name is Abdul Qudus Donyale. Before reaching Baghdad, Khan faces another challenge, a centuries-old enemy that had dominated the mountains of Persia, the assassins of Alamut. The fortress of Alamut was legendary, perched high on cliffs so sheer that it seemed invincible. For nearly 2 centuries, the assassins had terrorized rulers across the Islamic world, striking from shadows and vanishing into their mountain stronghold. But Hulagu was not deterred. He deployed siege engines capable of hurling massive stones. Fires lit the night sky as fortress crumbled under the relentless assault. Starvation weakened the defenders, and after months of resistance, Alamut fell. The assassins were annihilated, their libraries burned, and their leader executed. A chronicler at the time wrote, "The mountains that once whispered rebellion now echoed only silence." In January 1258, Hulagu Khan reached Baghdad's gates. The Caliph, Al-Mu'tasim, refused to negotiate, believing that the city's walls and its divine significance would protect it. But Hulagu's army was relentless. For 13 days, they bombarded the city with siege engines, shattering its defenses. On February 10th, the Mongols breached Baghdad's walls. The streets of Baghdad ran with blood. Libraries, including famed House of Wisdom, were burned. The Tigris River turned black with ink and red with blood as manuscripts were thrown into its waters. Tens of thousands were killed. The Caliph himself was executed, ending the Abbasid dynasty. Baghdad, once the jewel of the Islamic world, was reduced to ruins. Yet even in its destruction, Baghdad's legacy endured. Its scholars and their work inspired new centers of learning in Cairo, Qahira, Damascus, and Cordoba. Within a generation, even the Mongol foes who destroyed Baghdad embraced Islam and became its defenders.
In the 13th century, the Mongol Empire expanded with a speed and force that the world had never seen. Cities that had flourished for centuries fell in days. Kingdoms that once shaped history collapsed almost without resistance. To many, the Mongols looked less like an army and more like an approaching natural disaster. But in 1260, their momentum finally met resistance in a narrow green valley in Palestine called Ain Jalut. This is the story of how an unexpected force stopped the greatest conquerors of the age. Long before the Mongols reached the borders of Egypt, a unique military society had taken shape there, the Mamluks. These were not aristocrats or hereditary rulers. Most began life as young captives brought from the Eurasian steppes, placed into harsh training schools, and molded into elite cavalry. Their entire identity was shaped around discipline, loyalty, and mastery of the battlefield. Over time, their strength eclipsed that of their masters. By the mid-1200s, the Mamluks had taken control of Egypt itself, forming a state built on military skill and internal unity. Their rise came at the very moment the Middle East faced its greatest threat. Under Hulagu Khan, Mongol armies had torn through Persia and then Iraq. The fall of Baghdad in 1258 sent shockwaves through the Islamic world. Not long after, Aleppo was crushed and Damascus bowed to Mongol authority. No major power stood between the invaders and Egypt. For many, the collapse of the region seemed inevitable. Then, unexpectedly, Mongol politics shifted. The death of the great Khan forced Hulagu to withdraw much of his army to Mongolia. He left behind a smaller but battle-hardened force in Syria led by Kitbuqa, a commander known for his boldness and refusal to retreat. For the first time in years, the Mongols were vulnerable. The Mamluks seized the moment. Sultan Qutuz made a decisive choice. Instead of waiting for invasion, he would meet the Mongols head-on. He joined forces with Baybars, a master tactician who understood how the Mongols fought and where they were weakest. Together, they marched north into Palestine, toward a valley chosen specifically for its narrow terrain, territory that limited Mongol mobility. That valley was Ain Jalut. At dawn, Baybars opened the confrontation with fast, precise strikes. Then, following the plan, he withdrew gradually, drawing the Mongols deeper into the valley. Kitbuqa, confident he was watching the enemy break, ordered an aggressive pursuit. The moment the Mongols committed fully, the trap snapped shut. Mamluk units hidden along the hillsides surged out. Arrows rained down. Cavalry slammed into the flanks. The valley that looked open from a distance became a cage, stripping the Mongols of their greatest advantage, freedom of movement. For the first time in decades, a Mongol army was fighting a battle on someone else's terms. As the struggle intensified in the center, Qutuz rode into the heart of the fighting, rallying his soldiers and pushing the final assault. The Mamluk line surged forward, breaking the Mongol formation. Kitbuqa was surrounded and killed. By midday, the Mongol force in Syria had ceased to exist. Ain Jalut did more than defeat an army. It halted a wave that had swept across continents. It safeguarded Egypt, protected the holy cities, and prevented the Mongols from reshaping the entire region. Most importantly, it proved something no one had dared to imagine. The Mongols could be stopped. A valley in Palestine became the turning point where strategy, courage, and timing rewrote the fate of an empire and preserved the heart of a civilization.